Today we're going to do the other bee, and we're going to start with the flower that the bee is flying onto. So I've drawn a sort of kidney bean shape and a sort of daisy here, and the centre is just simply French knots, and I'm picking up the yellow parts of the variegated thread, and just doing one wrap in the centre of the flower, just like we did with the previous French knots, and we're going to pack them in. So if you remember to do a French knot around the needle and then down into the hole next to where you came up, not in the same hole. And when I get to the orange part of the thread, I'm going to change to do some lazy daisy stitches for the flower. So let's just check that's still a bit of yellow there. This will probably be my last one, but let's just see. Let's just do one more. And now my thread is becoming more orange, so I'm going to come up and do a chain stitch. So go down into the same hole and bring your needle up through the loop, so you're working towards you, and don't pull it too tight, just anchor the stitch there nicely to make a chain. And this is a lazy daisy. So let's come up again, and I'm using the orange parts of the thread. So as soon as the thread goes yellow, I'm going to go back to doing my French knots. There we go, and I want them quite loose because we're going to do some more stitches in the centre. Maybe one more. My thread's turned yellow again, so I'm going to continue with the threads with the French knots. And they want to be packed in close together. Don't worry if with these French knots you go over a little bit over to the bee, because we're going to cover that up. So you can do them on top, most in between, so that it sticks out quite a nice distance. Okay, my thread's gone orange again, so let's finish with a few more petals. I've got one more to do down here, and also a little bit of one to do behind the bee, but just want to show you that we're going to fill in these petals with a little lazy daisy in the centre. So again, you can do them, I'm doing them all in orange. You can choose whether you use the yellow bits or not, but just going to do a smaller one in the centre like that to fill the petal shape. There we go. So I'm going to complete that now, do a little one here, one down here, and then we'll come back and do the stem. The stem, you can use any stitch you fancy really, so I'm going to use a Quaker stitch, which is a little bit thicker, which is the same stitch as we used for the bumblebee's legs. So if you remember, take a stitch and then come up at the top, and then take a stitch down and come up through that stitch. So Quaker stitch is a mixture of stem stitch and split back stitch. And if you are right-handed, you will keep your thread at the bottom or to the left. Left-handed, you will keep your thread on top or to the right. So it makes it thicker when you come up through that stitch there. So for a normal stem stitch, you would go up at the end of the stitch, but we're now splitting the thread. So you can make your stem straight or a bit curvy, it doesn't really matter. And then when you get to the end, you can tuck your last stitch in. Now let's just do a little lazy daisy for a couple of leaves. You might want to turn your work round. I'm going to do one in the centre as well. we're now going to start the bee, which is again done in a turkey rug stitch. A reminder about turkey rug stitch, you don't need any knots. We're going to use the grey and the lemony orange thread. Let's go in at the top, just to the right of your line, and then go to the left. So you're stitching from left to right as a right-hander, and then go down the other side of the thread. Don't pull it all the way through, and come up through that loop, and that's your first stitch. You can cut that off and that would be one stitch, but we're just going to loop it round to save cutting it off, and I'm going to sneak another tiny one in there. Start a little way away from your previous stitch, come up on the left, loop it round, and then go to the right of your stitch. Don't pull it all the way through, and come up through the loop. Please refer back to the other bumblebee for left-handed instruction. So that is the end of that row. So have some scissors handy and cut it off. Now, broadly speaking, I've done 3 rows of, or I'm going to do 3 rows of grey and 3 rows of the lemon, and carry on and try and organise it so I've got a bit of yellow at the top. Now you can see I've drawn some lines just to demonstrate that the outer part, because this bee is curving round, is thicker than the inner bit here. So you're going to get some bits on the outside where you're going to do more rows of one colour, and you'll sort of sneak another row in there. I'm going to demonstrate that, so let's just carry on a little bit. So we're starting to the right of the line, coming up, going down, and coming up through. So the first couple of rows you're only getting a few stitches in, or 2 stitches to be precise. Now if you go over your flower, that's fine, because the bee is supposed to be on top of the flower. So that's the second row. Now let's do another one. Come up to the right, go down to the right of the line, come up on the line, go down the other side, don't pull it through, and come up through the loop. I'm going to get another one in there. And then cut off. Now what I mean is I've got a little bit of space here, so I'm going to put another few stitches in before I start my lemon. Keep going up from the bottom, don't I? Go down on the top, more concentration needed, up on the line and down, and then up through that loop. So that'll do. So I've put an extra stitch in before um, changing to the lemon thread. So it's just a question of thinking, well, it's not a straight line. So for example, when you get here, you might do your 3 rows and then have to put two couple of stitches here before you carry on. So I'm going to do a little bit more and I'll return when I get a bit further up. Done a few more rows. Now here I'm going to start the lemon a little bit earlier, and I'm going to just put a couple of stitches in there to straighten it up before I go all the way across. So that's what I mean by just adding a few more stitches at the wider part. And you just have to judge which colour to do it in. If you've done a lot in the grey, then start the lemon early, for example. So let's just do one more. These loops don't want to be too long, so these loops here, they don't need to be more than about 1/4 of an inch because they're going to just get cut off. So don't make them massively long, it's just a waste of thread. So just 2 stitches there, and maybe just 1 here. And now I can go all the way across. So always start just short of the line and then come up on the line. Up through the loop, make another little loop. If you're going all the way across, you should be able to get about 3 stitches in now. And as I said, don't worry if you go all the way onto your flower. I'm going to carry on and I'm going to organise it, as I said, so that a little bit of yellow is at the top, and I'll return and do a bit of cutting of these loops. You can cut these as you go if you wish. Just the ends here, we're going to cut the whole lot off afterwards. Almost at the top now, and I'm just going to put a couple of little yellow stitches right at the top. Almost on top of each other. So that's 1, and then just about get another one in. Two. And now you're going to cut your loops, so you can cut all those loops that we've made. And then just cut across gradually. Don't go too mad at first. You can't put it back. I like to go around the edges at the bottom and just neaten those up. Bits of fluff everywhere. Okay, I'm going to tidy that up off camera so I can get my hand round to the other side more easily. And then I will return and show you. But that's not looking too bad. So that's my bee. And all you want to do now is put some straight stitches in for the legs. So you can go across your flower like that, just doing them fairly randomly. You can hardly see them. Where should we have that next one? Like that. Let's put a couple of antennae maybe. Get a bit longer, can't see it. And if you want to add anything more to your flower, of course you can do that. I think that'll do. There's a few more bits there to cut off. There's the second bee. I think we will do this hexagon here now, and then we're going to finish with the spider.